Imagine waking up one day to the overwhelming realization that you've spent your entire life chasing something elusive, something you were told you needed. But in the quiet of the morning, in the solitude of your own thoughts, you can't remember what it actually is. You've followed the rules. You've checked off the boxes. You've done everything right. And yet, you feel lost. There's a discomfort in that realization. It's a gnawing, hollow feeling, as if you're looking at a life that belongs to someone else. In that moment, everything you thought you understood about yourself starts to crumble. Was this really who you were meant to be? Was this all there is? Or, worse yet, what if you don't even know who you are? But here's the contradiction. We live in an age where self-discovery, personal growth, and authenticity are preached louder than ever before. You're constantly told to find yourself, to be true to who you are. Yet more people feel disconnected, detached, and fragmented than ever before. Why is it, in a time of endless possibilities and self-help content at our fingertips, that most people will never truly find themselves? What's preventing you from discovering the core of your own existence? This isn't a question of opportunity, nor is it a matter of intelligence. It's not about lack of information or failure to try harder. It's something far deeper, far more subtle, and far more dangerous. Something that runs beneath the surface, hiding in the very structures of your life, your thoughts, and the society around you. And unless you understand it, really understand it, you'll continue wandering, forever disconnected from the essence of who you are, even as you climb higher and achieve more. What if the path to self-discovery isn't just about choosing a new direction, but about undoing the layers that have been placed upon you? What if to truly find yourself, you first have to lose everything you thought you knew? This is the first paradox you must face. The more you pursue the self, the further you may find yourself from it. The more you chase, the more you're entangled in a web of external expectations, societal standards, and conditioned beliefs. There's a great irony at play. The harder you try to find yourself, the more you risk losing yourself. The more you define yourself by the world's terms, the more you become someone else's version of who you should be. So, why does this happen? How does something so simple, knowing yourself, become so elusive, even in a world that claims to offer infinite answers? How do you escape this trap that pulls you further and further away from the core of who you truly are? This question, seemingly so simple, holds the key to understanding why most people will never find themselves. And in exploring this question, we must dig deep into the very fabric of human psychology, into the philosophical underpinnings that have shaped how we think about existence, identity, and meaning. As we begin this journey, ask yourself, what if everything you've been taught about self-improvement, about personal growth, about living authentically, is actually part of the problem? What if the key to self-discovery isn't in finding something, but in unraveling everything you've been led to believe? Because you see, the search for self is not a linear path. It's a descent into the unknown. And unless you're willing to face the discomfort, to confront the deepest questions, and to question everything you thought was true, you'll remain lost. Not because you didn't try, but because the very act of trying the wrong way kept you in chains. And that, my friend, is the hidden problem at the heart of this paradox. We've been searching for ourselves in all the wrong places. In the next section, we'll uncover the psychological and philosophical roots of this phenomenon. We'll explore why the very structures of your identity are so difficult to unearth, why you feel trapped in the patterns of behavior and thought that seem impossible to escape. But first, let this question linger. What if everything you think you know about yourself is just a shadow, a mirage designed to keep you distracted from the truth? The answers to these questions are closer than you think, but only if you're ready to face what's been hiding all along. There's a profound reason why most people will never find themselves. It isn't because they aren't trying or because they're incapable. It's because they're caught in a trap that's been carefully woven into the very fabric of modern existence. This trap is rooted in deep psychological and philosophical forces, ones that have been slowly shaping your consciousness from the moment you were born. You're told that self-discovery is a straightforward journey, an internal quest where you simply shed layers of external influence to reveal your true essence. But this promise is deceptive. It assumes that there is a true self buried underneath all the noise. However, this true self is not so simple, nor is it easily found. In fact, as the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre might argue, the more you try to pinpoint a fixed identity, the further you stray from the reality of who you are. What if the self isn't something static to be discovered, but something fluid, something created moment by moment through your choices? The problem begins with the way we are raised. From the moment you are born, you are immediately thrust into a system, society, culture, family. That begins the process of constructing your identity. You don't arrive in this world as a blank slate, ready to be filled with pure, untainted authenticity. You are born into a set of expectations, a web of values, and a historical narrative that shapes the very core of your existence. The self you're searching for is not free from this influence. It's not a hidden treasure waiting to be unearthed, but a product of everything that has ever been projected onto you. This is the first layer of the trap, the societal construct of identity. Philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche have long argued that modern life has led us to a state of profound alienation, where we've traded our authentic desires for external validation. Nietzsche called this the slave morality, a system of values that tells you who you should be, what you should want, and how you should act. In a world dominated by consumerism, status, and competition, you are constantly encouraged to conform to an image of success that is not your own. You end up measuring your worth by how well you fit into society's expectations, not by any internal sense of meaning or purpose. But it's not just society that shapes you. You've internalized these external pressures so deeply that they have become part of your very psyche. This is where Carl Jung's concept of the shadow comes into play. Jung argued that the self you present to the world is only a small fraction of who you truly are. The rest, the parts of you that you've repressed, denied, or disowned, form the shadow. The shadow is the collection of traits, desires, and impulses that you've learned to suppress because they don't align with the image you've been taught to project. And here's where the trap deepens. In trying to conform to a socially accepted version of yourself, you unknowingly push these parts of you deeper into the unconscious. The more you deny them, the more power they gain. The more you repress the aspects of yourself that don't fit society's image, the more you lose touch with the very essence of your own being. You become a distorted reflection of what others expect, not a true expression of your internal reality. So, the question becomes, how can you find yourself if you've never truly been allowed to exist in your full, unfiltered form? The true self is not a static entity to be discovered, but something dynamic, something that can only emerge when you stop trying to force it into a mold. But there's another, even more insidious layer to this issue. It's the way our modern minds have been conditioned. Think of it in terms of what Aldous Huxley warned us about in his novel Brave New World. He described a society where happiness was no longer found through deep, meaningful struggle, but through instant gratification. In our modern world, the drive for comfort and pleasure has become so dominant that it blinds us to the necessity of discomfort and struggle in finding meaning. If you're constantly seeking to avoid discomfort, whether it's through consumerism, social media, or even superficial self-help, you're not allowing yourself to face the hard truths about who you are. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But how can you become yourself if you're avoiding the pain of self-exploration? How can you confront the shadow, the discomfort, the darkness that lies beneath, if you're constantly seeking to numb it or distract yourself from it? Modern society has conditioned us to equate self-worth with ease, with comfort, with pleasure. But the journey to self-discovery isn't about seeking pleasure or avoiding discomfort. It's about integrating the whole of who you are, embracing both your light and your darkness. As Nietzsche wrote, one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. The journey of finding yourself isn't about avoiding chaos, it's about learning to dance with it. The more you avoid discomfort, the more fragmented you become. The more you chase pleasure, the further you move from the core of who you are. And in this paradox, you find yourself locked in a vicious cycle. The very pursuit of self-improvement or happiness keeps you trapped in the illusion of an external self that will never be enough. In the next section, we'll begin to unravel the unseen consequences of this trap. We'll look at how these hidden forces shape your life in ways that are subtle but deeply impactful, how they influence not just your personal sense of self, but your relationships, your career, and even your place in society. Stay with this thought. What if the real reason you've never found yourself is because you've been looking for answers outside yourself in all the wrong places? And what if the key to breaking free lies not in searching more frantically, but in learning to question everything you've ever believed about who you are? Now that we've uncovered the psychological and philosophical roots of the problem, we need to look at the unseen consequences of this deep disconnect between your true self and the identity you've been conditioned to follow. These consequences are not always immediately obvious. They are not like a broken bone that you can see and feel. Instead, they are subtle, quiet, insidious forces that seep into your life and influence your decisions, emotions, and relationships in ways you may not even realize. The first of these consequences is what I'll call existential numbness. It's a pervasive, underlying sense that something is off, but you can't quite pinpoint what it is. You go through life following the script that's been handed to you. You pursue success, relationships, pleasure, and comfort, but none of it ever quite feels fulfilling. You accomplish things, perhaps even great things, but something is missing. The high of achievement fades quickly, leaving you with the same sense of emptiness, the same gnawing discomfort. This is because, at a deep level, you're not really pursuing what you want. You're pursuing what society, culture, and your upbringing have convinced you should want. You've internalized an external narrative, one that doesn't match who you truly are. And no matter how much you succeed by those external measures, it will never satisfy you because it was never meant to. As Arthur Schopenhauer put it, wealth is like seawater. The more we drink, the thirstier we become. We see this play out in many people's lives. There are countless individuals who achieve everything they thought they were supposed to. They build the career, they marry the right person, they buy the house, they take the vacations, and yet, at some point, they look around and ask, is this it? The truth is, it's not that they failed, it's that they were never aiming at the right target in the first place. The target was someone else's vision of what life should be, not their own. And the result is a life that feels like it belongs to someone else too. This brings us to another consequence of this trap: self-alienation. When you don't live in alignment with your authentic self, you experience a slow but steady erosion of your own sense of being. You start to lose touch with the deeper layers of your psyche. You become disconnected from the passions, the curiosities, and the drives that once made you feel alive. Instead, you begin to live for others, whether it's to impress your parents, fit in with your peers, or conform to societal standards. You begin to wear a mask so often that you forget what it felt like to take it off. This kind of alienation doesn't happen all at once. It's a gradual, creeping process. You wake up one day and realize you've been living on autopilot for years. You've become a character in someone else's story, and you can't remember what it felt like to be the author of your own life. This self-alienation causes deep inner conflict. Your outer life may look perfect from the outside, but inside, you feel disconnected, empty, and increasingly desperate to escape the role you've been forced to play. But there are even darker consequences lurking beneath this alienation. When you live disconnected from your true self, when you suppress parts of yourself to fit into an identity that doesn't align with your essence, the repression can manifest in toxic ways. One of the most insidious consequences of this is psychological fragmentation, the breaking apart of your psyche. Jung's idea of the shadow offers insight here. The more you push away parts of yourself, the more power they gain over you. The aspects of your personality that you refuse to acknowledge or accept don't disappear. They become unconscious forces that shape your actions, often without your awareness. This can lead to destructive patterns, irrational fears, self-sabotage, chronic anxiety, and even addiction. Addiction, as Gabor Maté has pointed out, is often not a pursuit of pleasure but an escape from pain. It's the unconscious mind's attempt to numb the deep inner turmoil created by the constant suppression of one's true self. Whether it's alcohol, drugs, work, or even social media, these external distractions become coping mechanisms for the discomfort of living a life that doesn't feel real. You may feel fine in the moment, but at a deeper level, there's always the nagging sense that something is wrong, something is missing. And as you continue to numb yourself, the disconnection grows more profound, leaving you further from ever truly finding peace or understanding. This brings us to one of the most tragic consequences of all: societal decay. When individuals are unable to find themselves, when they are trapped in false identities and disconnected from their own essence, society as a whole suffers. We live in a world where the pressure to conform is immense. Society demands that you play a role, follow the rules, and pursue goals that are preordained for you. But in doing so, we collectively lose touch with authenticity. We lose the power of individual insight, creativity, and wisdom. Instead, we end up with a culture that values performance over being, consumption over meaning, and appearances over substance. When individuals cannot live authentically, they begin to distrust one another, to compete rather than collaborate, to prioritize status over substance. The result is a fragmented, superficial society, one that perpetuates the very conditions that prevent people from ever finding themselves. It becomes a vicious cycle. People are disconnected from their own identities, which leads to disconnection in relationships, disconnection in communities, and ultimately, a disconnection from the world itself. This is the true cost of the unseen consequences of the modern condition. It's not just that individuals suffer. Society, in its pursuit of comfort, status, and external success, is eroding the very foundation of human connection and self-awareness. But there is hope. These consequences may be deeply entrenched in the fabric of modern existence, but they are not permanent. In the next section, we will explore how to break free from these unseen forces, how to rebel against the conditioning that has shaped you and reclaim your true self. It won't be easy. It will require deep introspection and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. But the path to liberation begins with understanding these consequences. Only then can you begin to rebuild your life on your own terms. Stay with me. The breakthrough is closer than you think. Now that we've explored the hidden forces, the subtle traps, and the profound consequences of living disconnected from your true self, it's time to talk about how to break free. The journey of self-discovery, of reclaiming your life from the tangled web of external influences and internal repression, is not a linear path. It is a rebellion. A rebellion against everything that has shaped you into someone you were never meant to be. It's a radical shift in perspective, a challenge to the very core of your existence. To break free from the constraints of your conditioned identity, you must begin by redefining what it means to be yourself. The first step in this rebellion is realizing that the self is not a fixed entity waiting to be found. It's an ongoing process, a constant becoming. This idea might sound unsettling. After all, we've been taught to believe that our self is something we must discover, like a treasure buried deep inside us. But the truth is more complex and far more liberating. The idea of a fixed self is a construct, a comforting illusion designed to give us a sense of stability in a world that is constantly changing. But the more you cling to this fixed notion, the more you become trapped in it. As existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre argued, the self is not something that exists in some idealized, predetermined state. Instead, it's something you create through your actions, choices, and relationships. The very act of living is an act of self-creation. You become who you choose to be, not by conforming to societal roles or expectations, but by making decisions that align with your authentic desires and values. This is the first radical shift in perspective. Stop looking for the true self as if it's something hidden, waiting to be uncovered. Instead, understand that your true self is something you actively create every day. Each moment you decide to reject external pressure and follow your own desires, you are participating in the process of self-creation. You are writing your own story, not as a passive character, but as the author of your life. But creating yourself is not an easy task. In fact, it's an uncomfortable, often painful process. Why? Because to break free from the chains of your conditioned identity, you must confront the shadow. Remember Carl Jung's concept. The shadow is that part of you that you have denied, repressed, or ignored, usually because it doesn't fit the image you've been taught to present to the world. It's the darker side of your psyche, containing all the impulses, emotions, and desires that you've been told to suppress. To reclaim yourself, you must learn to face these repressed parts head-on. You must integrate your shadow into your conscious life. This is where real self-discovery begins, not in avoiding the darkness, but in embracing it. The shadow is not inherently negative. It's a part of who you are, a crucial piece of your wholeness. The more you avoid it, the more control it exerts over you from the unconscious. But the moment you confront it, when you accept your darkness and bring it into the light, you begin to free yourself from its power. This is the second radical shift in perspective. Instead of rejecting the bad parts of yourself, embrace them. The very things you've been taught to hide, your anger, your jealousy, your insecurities, are part of your human experience. They don't define you, but they are essential to understanding the full depth of your psyche. When you make peace with these aspects of yourself, you stop living in fear of them. You begin to reclaim your true power, and you become more authentic in the process. Breaking free also requires breaking free from the tyranny of other people's expectations. This, in many ways, is the most difficult part of the rebellion. We've been conditioned to seek approval, to measure our worth by how well we meet the expectations of our family, our peers, and society at large. This is the source of much of our anxiety, our self-doubt, and our frustration. The constant need for validation keeps us trapped in a cycle of pleasing others, even at the cost of our own well-being. But in order to reclaim your true self, you must be willing to reject this external validation. This is the third radical shift in perspective. Understand that your worth is not determined by how others perceive you. It's not determined by how many likes you get on social media, how much money you make, or how many people approve of your choices. Your worth is inherent, and it is defined by you alone. This shift is difficult because we've been taught to equate validation with self-worth. But imagine a life where your actions are not driven by the need for approval, where you make decisions based on your own values and desires, not someone else's expectations. In this space, you are no longer bound by the limitations of societal norms. You are free to create a life that is truly your own. How do you begin this rebellion? It starts with small, everyday acts of defiance. Begin by questioning everything. Don't accept anything at face value. Ask yourself, why do I want this? Is this something I truly desire? Or is it something I've been told I should want? Question your motivations. Question your beliefs. Question the very systems and structures that have shaped your identity. The more you question, the more you will see how much of your life has been constructed by forces outside of you. Start to reject the patterns that no longer serve you. If certain people or environments drain your energy and reinforce your false identity, distance yourself. If your job is no longer aligned with your values, consider what it might take to pursue something that does. Start building a life that reflects the person you truly want to be, not the person you were told to be. Breaking free doesn't mean abandoning everything you've known. It means transforming it, integrating your new understanding of who you are into your everyday existence. It means becoming a living example of what it looks like to live authentically, unapologetically, and on your own terms. History is full of individuals who defied convention and discovered their true selves in the process. From Nietzsche's radical rejection of conventional morality, to Jung's exploration of the unconscious mind, to individuals like Viktor Frankl, who found meaning and purpose even in the most horrific of circumstances. They all had one thing in common: they refused to accept the false identities imposed upon them. They broke free, and in doing so, they not only found themselves, but changed the world around them. The rebellion to reclaim yourself is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing practice. It's a commitment to living authentically, no matter how uncomfortable it may be, no matter how many times you have to challenge the stories you've been told about who you should be. And so, we come to the final question. What would happen if you stopped living for someone else's version of yourself? What if you stopped seeking approval, stopped conforming, stopped pretending to be something you're not? What if, instead, you embraced the uncomfortable truth that your authentic self has always been there, waiting for you to come back to it? What if, in the process of rejecting everything that is false, you finally found the freedom to live fully as who you are? The rebellion has begun. And now, it's time to embrace the final realization that will change everything. Now that you've begun the rebellion, now that you've rejected the lies and the chains that once bound you, the most powerful and liberating realization is within your reach. It is the ultimate truth, the one that, once understood, reframes everything. It's a truth so profound, so radically simple, that it can shift the entire course of your life. The truth is this: you are the creator of your own reality. This may sound like a platitude, something you've heard 1,000 times before, but let me ask you, have you truly internalized it? Have you grasped the depth of what it means? Most people never really understand this. They hear the words, but they don't feel their power. And this is where they continue to remain stuck. They wait for external circumstances to change. They hope for someone or something to give them the answers. They wait for life to give them permission to be themselves. But the truth is that you are the only one who can create the life you want. Not through willpower alone, not by forcing an idealized version of yourself into existence, but by understanding the power of your perception, your choices, and your inner world. This is where the rebellion reaches its highest point. Up until now, you've been defying external pressures, rejecting societal norms, and confronting the shadow within. But the final step, the ultimate breakthrough, is realizing that you don't need to find yourself because, in truth, you are already found. You were never lost. You were only sleeping, caught in a false narrative, bound by an illusion. The greatest illusion of all is that the world exists as something separate from you. We've been taught to see ourselves as passive observers of a reality that happens to us. We see life as something out there, something we react to. But in reality, life is not something happening to you. It's something you are creating every single moment, whether you realize it or not. The way you interpret the world, the stories you tell yourself, the beliefs you hold about who you are, all of these things shape your reality. You are the artist, the architect, the storyteller of your existence. Take a moment to truly understand what that means. If you are the creator of your own reality, then you have the power to change it. You can redefine who you are, what you want, and how you experience the world. No longer are you beholden to the expectations of others. No longer are you a passive participant in your own life. You are the creator. You are the source. But what does this creation look like in practice? It doesn't mean an overnight transformation or a life free from struggle. It doesn't mean that challenges won't arise or that everything will always go smoothly. It means that you have the ability to choose how you respond to the challenges of life. You have the power to choose meaning in the face of suffering, joy in the face of hardship, authenticity in the face of pressure. You have the ability to shape your inner world, and in doing so, you shape the outer world. Think of Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of the Holocaust and still found a way to create meaning in the most unimaginable circumstances. He understood that even in the most brutal conditions, the final freedom that no one can take from you is the freedom to choose your attitude, your perspective, and your response to life. Frankl said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. This is what it means to create your reality. It's not about controlling every external circumstance. It's about taking full responsibility for your inner world. It's about choosing how you interpret life and how you choose to act, regardless of what the world throws at you. The realization that you create your own reality also means that you are not at the mercy of external events. This doesn't mean that life is always fair or that injustice doesn't exist, but it does mean that your power is in how you engage with life. The world can only affect you to the degree that you allow it to. When you understand this, you stop looking for answers outside yourself. You stop waiting for the perfect job, the perfect relationship, the perfect circumstances to finally allow you to be yourself. You are already free. This realization is also deeply empowering. It means that you no longer have to wait for life to happen to you. You stop being a victim of your past, your upbringing, or your circumstances. You reclaim agency over your life. This power is not a source of pride, nor is it an egoic victory. It's a responsibility. With this power comes the responsibility to create consciously, to create with awareness, and to create with love. As Carl Jung wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. The privilege here is not a guarantee. It's a task. It's a journey, a process that requires your active participation. But the most powerful aspect of this journey is that it's not about seeking something outside of yourself. It's about uncovering what has always been within you, buried beneath layers of conditioning, fear, and societal expectations. To be free is to embrace the fact that you are the creator of your life. It's to recognize that your past doesn't define you. It's to understand that your future is not determined by what you've been told is possible. Your future is defined by your choices in the present moment. And now, as you step forward into this new awareness, you are faced with a final question. What will you create? Will you continue to live a life dictated by others? Will you allow the forces of culture, society, and fear to define your path? Or will you choose to live authentically, to create a life based on your true desires, values, and potential? The answer lies within you, and it always has. The ultimate truth is simple yet profound. You have always been the creator. The world you see is the world you've created. The life you live is the life you've built, consciously or unconsciously, through the choices you've made. You can choose to create something new, something that reflects your true self, starting today. The rebellion is not over. It's only just begun. Step forward into your power, into your authenticity. The world is waiting for you to create it.